We recently got to have a first look at World of Tanks Mercenaries, which comes out on June 26th, and whilst there we got to catch up with Ingo Horn, who's head of communications for consoles at wargaming.net. He told us about the new features for Mercenaries, what's going on with war stories, and how Mercenaries is a sharp turn for the series in general. So, enjoy.
Yes, my name is Ingo Horn. I'm the communication director for consoles at wargaming.net.
Great. So, obviously World of Tanks Mercenaries is going to be coming out soon. When is the exact release date?
26th of June,
Great,
so in
okay.
rather about 3 weeks.
So we are getting to towards the very final phase of ramping up to it. Right, so in that, you've obviously started releasing these war stories in the meantime. So, first of all, how many war stories are there going to be?
I cannot say how many there will be because we don't know yet about the future of the war stories in a way of what it's in 1 or 2 years. Of course, we have a plan what's coming out in August, in November, in December, and so on. So currently we have 8 war stories out. With the highest, which is coming out on the 26th, we have the 9th war story out. But there will be additional war stories as well attached to this mercenary scenario. So for the rest of the year, we already know what and when we are going to be released, but it's too early. Let's talk on Gamescom.
Okay. All right then. Okay, so for those who don't actually, I just want to stick on the war stories just for one more question, okay?
Yes.
So for those who might not have played them or heard about them yet, what stories are they telling? What's unfolding in these?
So war stories is in general our approach to add single player content to the game for those who are not necessarily want to play PvP or who are too careful and think, oh, I'm not too good enough for the PvP and so on. So it basically in the beginning, in August last year, we introduced war stories as an alternative reality scenario where we make inside closed campaigns. I would call it a campaign. So it consists most of the time of 3 various missions which you play through, and by that you are fulfilling a complete story. I give you an example. I think it was in September, we have released the Operation Sea Lion, which mainly the British people might know because there were a really scenario at the British Army. What happens if Germany is invading Great Britain and coming to London, for example? That was called the Operation Sea Lion, to force them out of Britain again. That never happened, as we all know, but we are taking this in a war story, for example. That's why we call it alternative reality scenario, something which the book Fatherland or this TV series The Man in the High Castle has shown us is very popular. We have created, for example, a Kennedy's war story, which is happening on the Cuba crisis to avoid that the nuclear war is happening. We have as well made something which is completely out of the box, where, for example, a British soldier after the World War, when Berlin was surrounded by a Russian soldier and the air bridge to Berlin was established by the British and the American army, was the airfield was taken over by the Russians. So you need to make a corridor to Berlin to really make the people get food, get everything, every daily goods as well, and to fight the Russians to make this corridor. As well, as we all know, the air bridge was quite successful, so therefore these are kind of examples which we are introducing in the war stories. Entertaining small stories which are telling a decent story, which is something unique, which never happened in World of Tanks before, as in the past we never had a single player modus, not on PC, not on Blitz, in console, never met.
So it's a whole new path for the game to actually kind of explore.
It's a complete whole new part with a narrative aspect.
So all these war stories, am I right in thinking that they're all kind of gearing towards the release of Mercenaries as well?
That's true.
Yeah.
With the last war story, Spoils of War, which were released in April, we already introduced some heroes in marks. Basically, there were commanders which are no longer doing what they are told to be done by their military bosses. For example, we have a German soldier who is sick and tired. He is on a small village at the Polish border. He's protecting this village and he gets the order, go to Berlin, fight the end war. And he's saying, no, I'm not getting this. I'm not leaving these people behind. I'm an emotionally person, I have a character. I will not follow this. I will be a mercenary and will take care of these people and try to avoid that they are getting in contact with the Russian army.
Okay then, so it's not kind of, obviously I think there's kind of always this stigma attached to mercenaries that they're kind of soulless or quite
It's interesting
bad.
that you're asking
Yeah.
this question. For example, on last week I were introduced to Michael Myers, which was Michael Hawk, sorry. Michael Hawk, which has been a Green Beret, which has been a CIA agent as well. He was in touch with real mercenaries, as enemies, but as allies as well. And he was claiming there are two parts of mercenaries. Some of them do it strictly for the money. We have this in the game as well, because you're fulfilling contracts.
Yeah.
By contracts you get new tanks, for example. But as well we have human beings who have an own free will and sometimes make decisions which are not logical, but are true to their heart. So you have these two types of mercenaries in reality as well, like in our game, and so we are playing a little bit with these stereotypes. Of course, as you say, yes, we all have seen movies where mercenaries are mostly the badass guys and doing only for some money or betraying and stuff like that. We are playing with this picture as well. But the reality is sometimes mercenaries are as well true patriots.
You spoke a bit about customization in the game. So obviously customization's always been in World of Tanks in some form or another. So you kind of mentioned though that it's going to be a lot deeper this time, mostly because mercenaries are able to kind of take different parts of tanks and attach them together. So how much deeper are we talking about here?
No, we are not talking about this kind of customization. So it's not like you can choose, I would like to have this from the Tiger tank, I would like to have that from the Sherman tank and that from the Panther. No, that is a wishful thinking, but if you are a logical thinking guy, and I think you are, we have 680 tanks currently in the game. If you're taking only 3 parts of the tank, so 680 high 3, we have so many opportunities to make different. It is a balancing nightmare, and some things wouldn't be realistic. So up to now, we stick to that, what our designers, our analytics in terms of knowledge about the tanks have identified what is not an overpowered tank, for example, because otherwise you might be putting together all the best stuff, the best driving tank, the best shooting tank, the highest penetration rate, and so on in together, and have the total OP tank at place. That's not making any sense at all. Although I must admit that would be a fun mode, but in the end everybody would go with the same combination. It's like with an MMO where you all will go with the same gear into it. That wouldn't make any sense at all.
I also did enjoy just how emphatic you were with a no there. You cut me down straight away. It's like, no. Right.
Definitely. So you see that, but there will be not only those 5 tanks which are now in the beginning, there will be on a continuous base released new tanks that will bring us to a complete new in Mark's nation, the nation of the mercenaries.
Okay, great. So you have already touched on this question that I'm going to ask a little bit, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to give me a bit more of an answer. So what did strike me about the older World of Tanks games is that they've always kind of played with that nice balance of arcade versus kind of historical accuracy. You kind of mentioned earlier that, you know, all these tanks that we see in the game, you can kind of write about them and there's all a balance to them somewhat, but there's also, you take in consideration just what they were like in history as well. So with Mercenaries, have you been able, because obviously it's set in an alternate reality now, have you been able to kind of play with anything or try anything new? Obviously narrative aside.
You must separate the PvP from the PvE part. In the PvE part, as we have this closed story of the heist, it's really closed in between. You will have a tank, the Trinity tank, which is really OP. If you would have played it, then you would see, oh, I want that tank in PvP mode, I will rule everybody. No, it is not that case. Of course, you have a balanced tanks as well in the PvP mode, and therefore you need to proceed in the tech tree from tier 1 to tier 10, like in the same way you do with every new nation. For example, when we introduced in autumn last year the Swedish nations, which had a special dedicated 2-stance tank, which has a fire mode and a driving mode, some people were saying, I don't like this because I would like to concentrate on several aspects. Others said, oh cool, I have so many opportunities with that to be a really specialized driver or a specialized shooter on that. And this is what we are adding now with Mercenaries as well. The thing is, you can attach to the new tanks, but you don't have to. So for those people who say, these kind of tanks are not realistic for me, they are something which are arcadish, I don't want them, you still can continue with your British Army, US Army, German tanks, Russian line, French line, whatever you would prefer. But you need to stick to the scenario where, for example, the maps are changing. You need to learn new maps, which might be in a positive way as well, encountering you in a positive way. But on the other side, you need to learn new aspects of the game. And this is, of course, great if you're an active player, that you not have your daily routine, that you're challenged at some given point. But it's definitely the case if you don't like, for example, the mercenaries, you don't have to use them.
Okay. So you talk about those different challenges and stuff like that. Could you give us a taste of what that might include?
Yeah, the challenge, for example, is if you take a dedicated known map, like Himmelsdorf, for example. Everybody knows where the sniper spots are. Everybody knows where he can rest a little bit, or where he can stay on a shooting range and waiting only for enemies. The light tanks know where to drive to clear the area, and at least where the artillery of the enemy is, and so on. And due to the fact that we are talking about a scenario of 1948, where the war is raging since years, you could imagine how a city would look like after 3 additional years or 2.5 years of additional war. There is not every building standing anymore. There might be some debris over there, some crates might be there, some stones are unturned in a way that you cannot hide behind them. So you, like Sophie mentioned, we have 10 new maps inside. They are sometimes not really new, so you figure out, oh, that was Himmelsdorf, but it looked different right now. Shit, I need to learn new. I have to make new tactics. The workaround on the right way, the hill upwards, is no longer possible in these kind of things. That is a good example in how far you have to face challenges on that. And the second challenge, of course, is at the beginning, as we are introducing 5 new tanks, you will find those tanks as well in your own team or as an enemy. Because that is something which, of course, is happening. If somebody likes to play the mercenaries, they will encounter the PvP mode as well with the mercenaries tanks. So you need to find new weak spots where you can hit them. You will find where the armor is very good. You find where the penetration rate might be higher, lower, and these kind of learnings which you do literally with every new tank we are putting into it.
A big part of what people really enjoyed about the last World of Tanks games as well were the different modes that you guys introduced. So obviously you spoke a bit earlier about there being balancing issues with matchmaking. I think that's something the community voiced quite clearly.
Of course.
So will we be seeing those modes return, and will we see some new modes with mercenaries as well?
In general, the sky is the limit. So somebody who knows wargaming for all over the years, we are continuously releasing new modes, something which we call seasonal modes, like Halloween mode, like April Fool's Joy, Xmas mode, and so on. This will, of course, continue. So we will, on a frequent base, release as well modes which are in forever or are only for a given time. We are releasing each month literally mission modes, for example. It's nothing like a big new mode, but you will have to fulfill different missions, different tasks, which is keeping you in the game and is driving you entertained, because you will get rewards out of that. Sometimes they're smaller, only a badge here, a medal there. Sometimes they are bigger, like Motherland, that you really get a really cool super tier 8 tank in the end, as an example. And of course, this is going to be continued. It might be that sometimes it's in the topic of mercenaries, sometimes it might be attached to something completely different, based on the nation, based on the time we are talking, and so on.
Okay, cool. So obviously, as a PR guy, you're quite, hand in hand with the community, really, aren't you? So, Indo, I prepared 3 questions.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, yeah. There were facts that were given in the last trailer, so I want to see if you know them. Okay. So, how many players have actually played World of Tanks?
You mean on console or in general?
Let's say in general.
In general, if you take all the platforms, over 200 million players.
Oof. Okay. Good. It's actually the number I have as well. Okay. Well done. How many battles have been won in the game? Let's just say on console this time. Actually, no, that's horrible.
No. 230.
Close. 250.
15,
We were looking for 250. And finally, how many shots do you think have been fired?
I know that from the trailer, but it's a high amount. Of course, the question is how many shots hit their targets out of that. Because if I'm literally hitting, that's something completely different. But therefore, it's really a huge number.
50 billion That was the answer.
I would not be even close to that.
Right, Indo, just to finish off, I wanted to do a quick yes or no section.
Okay.
That's cool, okay? So it'll just be like 5 or 6 questions, really quick fire, okay? So, in Mercenaries, will there be a Battle Royale mode?
No.
Damn. Okay. Is there an actual fear in the game of the tanks becoming sentient and killing the people inside?
Sorry, is there a fear?
Is there a genuine fear of tanks becoming sentient and killing the people inside? And then becoming some sort of overlord?
No, we are into the machinery. We do not care about the people inside. They will always be out. That's why, for example, we have in Germany, as you know, they have the highest strictly in terms of brutality, and likewise we have in USK at 12. We have a PEGI rating, this is 7, and so on. So no.
Right. What's the biggest thing that you're looking forward to in Mercenaries?
The characters, the heroes that we have, people you can identify with, which have individual approaches onto the battlefield. So I'm really looking forward in how far the players will engage more with this character or with that character. Of course, the female characters, if they will attract them, or more the male characters they identify them with. That is something which I'm personally really looking forward.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
You're welcome.
Man. Okay.
So everyone, that was our interview with Ingo Horn ahead of World of Tanks and Mercenaries, which comes out on June 26th for PS4, Xbox One and PC. Let us know in the comments whether or not you're looking forward to the game. If you enjoyed it, please do give us a like, just so we know if you want us to do more interviews in the future. Okay guys, thank you for watching and listening obviously, and we'll see you next time. Bye.